प्रातस्मरामि हृदि संस्फुरदात्मतत्त्वं सच्चित्सुखं परमहं सगतिं तुरीयं यत्स्वप्नजागरसुषुप्तमवैति नित्यं तद्ब्रह्म निष्कलमहं न च भूतसङ्गः तपोभिक्षीणपापानां शान्तानां वीतरागिणां मुमुक्षूणामपेक्षोऽयम् आत्मबोधो विधीयते बोधोऽन्यसाधनेभ्यो हि साक्षान्मोक्षैकसाधनं पाकस्य वह्निवज्ञानं विना मोक्षो न सिद्ध्यति। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। Okay. Hari Om.
Hari Om. So, Hari Om,
Hari Om,
sir.
everyone.
Hari Om.
Hari Om, everyone.
Hari Om. Good morning.
Hari Om.
Chapter 10 of the Bhagavad Gita. Today we'll start with chapter 10 called Vibhuti Yoga. Chapter 10 is titled Vibhuti Yoga, which means the yoga of Vibhutis. Vibhutis means supreme manifestation. Bhuti means manifestation, Vibhuti means supreme manifestation. As I've said before, that chapter 7 through 12 is a chronology of bhakti. And when I say that, people often think that, okay, bhakti and knowledge are separate. But if you'll see the contents of chapter 7, 8, 9, they've all gone over your head. It's been more knowledge than chapter 3, 4, 5, 6. In fact, it's been very subtle knowledge. Because chapter 7 through 9 has been an attempt to understand what is God. Remember, bhakti is the capacity to see the splash of divinity all around you. But if you don't know what you're seeing, how will you see it? What is it that you're seeing? You have to try to understand what is it that you're trying to see. And to try to understand what is it that I'm looking for, what is this divinity? Is it simply the form of a deity? To build that vision has been the attempt of chapter 7, chapter 8, chapter 9. When you have the time, go through the 3 chapters, at least from the introduction. You have the book with you. In the book, each chapter has been broken up into several sections. Go through the summary of each section for starters. And you'll see the beautiful flow of thought, wherein we've tried to talk about para and apara. That is the distinction between matter and spirit. And then in chapter 8, we talked about akshara, right? So para is kshara, apara is akshara. And then almost indicating that beyond para and apara, there is an uttama purusha. Although he hasn't come to that yet, but he's indicating that. So all of these ideas have attempted to make us reflect upon what is God. And when you will, the deeper you will reflect upon this, the deeper your devotion will grow. Devotion and knowledge, that's the point I'm trying to make. Devotion and knowledge go hand in hand. The more the knowledge, the greater the devotion. The greater the devotion, the purer the knowledge. So chapter 1 through 6 followed an individual's progression. 7 to 9 was dedicated or has been dedicated so far to knowing what is Ishvara, what is God. Akshara Brahma Paramam. It is a Raja Vidya. And then in chapter 9 he concluded, in the last class we concluded with the 4 essential requirements of a bhakta. Chapter 9 verse number 34. Man mana bhava mad bhaktaha madhyaji mam namaskuru. We thought bhakti was easy. No. Man mana bhava mad bhaktaha madhyaji mam namaskuru. With your body, mind, intellect. Bring your intellect to my awareness, man mana. Use your intellect to bring your mind to my awareness. Fixate it on me. Ananya chinta. Madhyaji. Be devout to me. That bhavana. And that will happen only when you dissolve your ego. The more you dissolve your ego, the more you will cultivate love for divinity. Sacrifice to me, Madhyaji. With your actions, do function in the spirit of service and sacrifice. Maam Namaskuru, bow to me, surrender your ego to me. So these are the 4 elements of bhakti. Whoever thought it was easy. The point I'm trying to make is that only when you cultivate an understanding of divinity, only when you go deeper into your exploration of what is God, will you be able to truly develop these. Will you be truly able to do this? Will you be able to practice real bhakti? Will your bhakti go subtler? But दिल है कि मानता नहीं. बोलने से अगर बात बन जाती तो भगवत गीता लिखनी भी नहीं पड़ती. अब आती है बात विभूतियों की. Because Arjun is not in a position to completely understand. He is not that subtle a student yet. He is not an Upanishadic student. An Upanishadic student would have got up and said, thank you so much, I've got the message. And he would have left. But Arjuna is not there yet. And neither are we. We want a little bit. Thoda sa chakha do mujhe. So that's what Arjuna says in chapter 10. In the middle of chapter 10, he says, okay, whatever you have said so far, I totally believe you, I understand. Yes. I appreciate whatever you are saying. But how am I to meditate upon you? Show me a little bit. Tell me a little bit about yourself so that I can perceive you. Elaborate a little more in simpler terms. Like sometimes when you ask me, give me a practical example. So Arjuna is asking for a practical demonstration. Show me how am I to meditate upon you. Show me a form. So we're all building up to chapter. So chapter 10 is a beautiful stepping stone in that way to chapter 11. Chapter 11 is Vishwarupa Darshan. So the Vishwarupa Darshan is the culmination of all of these vibhutis. What the Lord is going to do in the lion's share of chapter 10 is express and explain analytically how one is to perceive the Lord, so that one can perceive the grandeur, the glory, the greatness. One can translate the akshara, the para bhava of chapter 7 and 8 into a visual demonstration. Because this is, whenever we see any kind of greatness, the first thing is for the ego to claim it. Anything good you do, what do you say? Maine kiya hai. Right? Funnily, if anything wrong you do, you hide away from it. You try to disown it. But the nature of the ego is such that it will aggrandize. It will try to, take responsibility for anything that is good. It will claim responsibility for anything that is good. The capacity to go beyond the ego and recognize that enlivening principle, that life element, that empowering force underlying everything that is grand, that is resonating with the true grandeur of divinity. And it only comes about in devotional terms. And that's what we're going to see in the lion's share of chapter 10. in the Vibhutis, and the Lord will talk about various Vibhutis. Each of these Vibhutis are related to several anecdotes from the Purana, so we'll have a lot of descriptive discussions. Maybe we'll go into a couple of stories from the Puranas, and all of them will be very nice to discuss. They'll have a lot of symbolism in them, so it's relatively light in that sense, in at least the part of the Vibhutis. But the Lord begins by summarizing what he has said so far, right? And then there is Arjuna's question: please show me, or please explain to me in more elaborate terms your Vibhutis. Then the lion's share of the chapter are the Vibhutis. Ultimately, at the end of the chapter, the Lord says, how much of my Vibhutis do you want me to explain to you? There's no end, and your mind will never be satiated. Your mind has to go beyond seeking the form to conceiving the formless. Your mind has to go beyond trying to understand God as something outside and cultivating true bhakti to seek the Lord within. But anyway, we'll come to that. Before we start chapter 10, we will take up questions. So I have a bunch of questions in the group, and we'll start with Kiranji's questions. Kiranji here?
Hi, Utsav. Yeah, I'm here.
I know it was there. I just okay. Taking off from where we left off last. How can one identify whether the work they are doing is aligned with their swadharma? And if it isn't, how does one transition towards it? Does nature eventually give a push that redirects a person to their true path? Swadharma is, I'm just bringing us to the same understanding. Swadharma is generally understood as that field of activity aligned with one's nature, right? What one's temperament is, what one's nature is, what one's gunas are. What is the field of activity that is aligned with it? Now, it's not necessarily a particular action, it may be a particular kind of activity, right? And that's where, a little bit of your own creativity, your own, capacity to build a place for yourself within a larger field, all of that thing sort of needs to be exercised by you. Because it doesn't come to you handed in a platter, is what I'm saying, right? It's not like, oh, your swadharma is to become a chess player, necessarily. Like, you may be analytical. If your temperament, if your tendency is analytical, okay, chess could be one of the, and you have, a very sort of sporty nature, I don't know, then chess could be one of the avenues you seek. But regardless of what you do, you should go into a field that supports sort of, an analytical endeavor. And of course, there are many other sort of layers to your swadharma. It's not just analytical. There could be, different flavors, which you will discover. I mean, which anyone discovers over a period of time. It's not hard to identify. If I were to ask you, someone put it very crudely. Put it very crudely once. They said, if I gave you $1 million, okay, maybe $1 million is not enough. You're from Mumbai, right, Kiranji?
That's right.
So $1 million is not enough for you. Suppose I give you $10 million. Suppose I give you $10 million tax-free everything, just in your bank account. What would you choose to do with your life? Because you must do something. You can't just say, okay, I'll go for a holiday. Okay, the holiday will last for 3 weeks, maybe a couple of months around the world. Ultimately, what is it that you would see yourself as? What is the identity you would want? What kind of action would you want to undertake? That would give you an idea of what is your swadharma. And that's not very difficult to identify. The problem comes in, where will the money come from? That's where the problem is. No one's actually giving you $10 million. So, bringing in your own practical considerations, bringing in a capacity to monetize your passion, bringing in the social expectation one has of you. That's where the confusion about, okay, Swadharma and is there actual opportunity in it, all of that arises. So everyone, to some extent, if they articulate what is it that they wish to do, and they don't have to know it in detail, of course, because only once you dive into something do you really explore and articulate. But a field of Swadharma is sort of most people are well aware of it, right? Um, how does one transition towards it? Well, one has to, and I think today, better than ever before, is an age where one can take certain bold decisions to do what the Swadharma is, right? Without having to worry about, because today in a day and age, the capacity to create a community, create a market, create a profession, or a work out of your passion, it's easier than ever before, right? In this connected digital world. So what it requires is a certain level of courage and conviction in your Swadharma, in recognizing the deeper joy that it gives you, right? That's what chapter 3 verse number 35 indicates to us. Swadharme nidhanam shreyaha paradharmo bhayavaha. It's better to fail in a Swadharma than succeed in a paradharma, because paradharma is fraught with fear, right? So if one has a true calling, it really depends on whether they have the courage and the conviction to take that leap, right? Either way, if one is in a sort of a certain professional setup, or they have several other obligations, or they've taken up something which they can't easily let go of, one should try to articulate what is this Swadharma and bring some expression to it, in some degree. Give a certain amount of time and effort. It could be a passion project on the side that one starts with, and slowly, as you discover, a passion project may turn into a full-fledged sort of preoccupation in itself, right? So that transition can start as a sort of a side passion project. Does nature give a push? Nature gives a push through your inner sort of your conscience, in a way. Your conscience will sort of be delighted if you are in a Swadharmic field. It will sing to you, and it will prick to you if you are not heeding it. So in that sense, nature will give you that sort of inner sort of calling. More than that, nature may not. I mean, ultimately, nature will only manifest what you place your efforts and shraddha upon, right? So only if you develop a shraddha towards your Swadharma will you be able to will nature sort of manifest it in forms of opportunities and things like that. But initially, the work that nature does is to actually sort of give voice to that inner you. So that's nature's job as far as Swadharma is concerned. But it requires your plunge, your courage, your conviction, or at least your clarity. Okay, let me make it a side project, a preoccupation along with my primary occupation. See, this only in the last 200-300 years in the industrial age have we become obsessed with a single action, a single identity, a single role. Once we started getting obsessed with efficiency and sort of a very industrial, sort of mechanical, output oriented economy, right? Otherwise, people had various aspects to their personality, right? And everyone was involved in multiple things. They had passions, they had interests, they had leanings, and I think slowly, especially if you don't have the burden of money, it becomes a lot easier to pursue it, and everyone should. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does itself. Very clear, in fact. Thank you.
Okay, a bunch of questions now from Rashmiji. Chapter 9, verse number 26. Devotion must go hand in hand with your own efforts for spiritual evolution. Krishna makes it amply clear that you cannot pass on this responsibility to him. My question: What is this responsibility he talks about here in this context? What is the verse? He's saying that devout offering of the striving self, I accept. Not devout offering of a devotee, that devout offering of a striving self. So devotion is important, your bhavana is important, but devotion must go hand in hand with your tapas, with your shraddha, with your dedication, with your effort. You have to be a striving seeker. And you know, as a striving seeker, what all you need to do. You have to have a daily discipline. You have to study every day. You have to, cultivate karma, bhakti, jnana into your life. You may have to be self-controlled in order to follow your discipline. You may have to use your intellect to make certain decisions, what to allow your mind, what not to allow your mind. These are all part of your tapas. The self-regulation and moderation of your life is all the effort you have to put in. The study and the reflection is all the effort you have to put in. Devotion is not a replacement for that. Devotion, first of all, is in some way a result of that. And that devotion only amplifies your effort further. Okay. Devotion will bring conviction into your efforts. But it's not a replacement. So he's saying this response, because of course we've often thought very, very superficially, people interpret, okay, this is Kali Yuga, all you have to do is take the name of the Lord. Say Krishna, 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 Krishna every day. Although that is true, if you're able to say Krishna, Krishna, Krishna all the time, that is Ananya Chinta. But not mechanically. Not mechanically, right? It has to be, that capacity to be in Ananya Chinta has to be cultivated through your own tapasya, right? Through your own purity, which cannot be replaced. You'll be free from the residual effects of your actions, become liberated from the bonds of action. In this context, what is getting liberated from the bonds of actions? Does it mean your mind gets purified? Bonds of actions means vasanas. Your actions create further vasanas, and past vasanas create present actions. So vasanas from the past create your present personality, forcing you into a particular kind of activity, and acting in a spirit of attachment and kartritva bhavana creates further vasanas. And this is a bond of action which keeps you in a cycle of birth and death. So when you function in a spirit of karma yoga, when you function with ananya chinta, when you function in life with the connection to the Lord, what is karma yoga? Karma yoga is disassociating yourself from the actor. No ego in the action. How that's so closely tied with the bhakti we're talking about. That's so closely tied with the bhakti. How do you disassociate from your action? How do you disassociate from your karma? The mind has a desire. I am simply fulfilling the mind's desire. The intellect has a desire. I am simply pursuing the intellect's desire. The body has a desire. I am simply pursuing the body's desire. These are equipments that the Lord has given me to function and to do His work. That's it. That's a mental dissociation, right? That you have the bhakti bhavana of connection with the divinity, you have that surrender to the divinity, and you have that disassociation from as a yogi, as a karma yogi, right? So this is the way in which devotion and karma blend. We've explained them as sort of separate, but only to bring them together. So when you function in this disassociated spirit, that's when you become slowly and gradually liberated from the bonds of action. So the residual effects are past vasanas, which have their present effects. When you function in the spirit of karma yoga, when you function with bhakti, you are simply exhausting the residual effects of the past, not creating further effects, right? So you're simply leaving the tap on and letting the entire tank of vasana simply drain out through your prarabdha. Yeah.
So,
Yes, as a result, your mind gets purified.
yes.
I
So
mean,
when he says that you are with all this, with tapas, with a detachment, with karma yoga, when he's putting everything together, why is he saying that you don't pass the responsibility to him when we are talking about surrender? My question was like, you do pass the responsibility to him
you
because
pass the responsibility of the result to him. You're passing on the responsibility of the result. आपने मुझे ये काम करने के लिए भेजा है, मैं ये काम कर रहा हूँ, बस आगे आप संभालो. In fact, it's very important to pass on the responsibility of the result. नहीं तो आप सोचते हुए बैठेंगे, मुझे कब मिलेगा, मेरा क्या होगा. अरे जिसने तुम्हें यहाँ भेजा है वही संभालेंगे तुमको. So yes, you pass on the result, you pass on the responsibility of the result. He's saying don't pass on the responsibility of your action, because that's the general preconceived notion in many spiritual circles कि कुछ करने का नहीं है, सब कुछ छोड़ छाड़ के निकल जाओ यहाँ से. It's a very wrong misinterpretation. It's an escapism that has crept into spirituality. And it's only natural. People construe things in their own fashion, said Shakespeare. So escapists will always construe spirituality as a path for escaping, right? Which is why he's reiterating, no. Don't, poison this path with your wrong thinking. It's not a path for escapists. You have to do your part. You have to play your role. Do your dharma. You pass on the responsibility of the result to me. Very happily. Okay, verse number 33. The verse presents two powerful reasons to change your focus from the external world to the self. First, this world is joyless. Second, the actual enjoyment and sense contact is subjective, not objective. Okay, your question is, what do you mean by actual enjoyment being subjective? Okay, this world is joyless and transient. That's what the verse says, I think. Right? I am not projecting it out here because I want you guys to look into your books. Otherwise, you will never look into your books. Now I'm remembering what my teachers used to feel like in school. The students would never look into their books. They are just blabbering on the blackboard. So I'm not presenting it out here so that you look into your books. Verse number 33 says, this world is joyless and transient. So this is the two powerful motivations that the commentary is talking about. The two powerful reasons to change your focus from this world, which is joyless and transient, to the self. Now, the question, the two reasons is, one, that it is joyless because it is ephemeral, it's passing, it's not really long lasting. And the second reason it is joyless is because it is actually not an objective experience. It's totally dependent on your subjective frame of mind. And your question is, what do you mean by that enjoyment being subjective? Isn't it very clear? You see it every day. You wake up with a bad mood. Suppose there is something that's bothering your head, bothering your mind, some news in the family, some issue. Will you be able to enjoy your breakfast? Rashmi ji, today we will go and eat. What's the new?
Bhupender Mansion mein idli. That's my breakfast.
Now dosa coffee. Now there's dosa coffee. Munmun ji is shaking her head. Will you be able to enjoy that idli? You'll be bothered. You'll be troubled. So your state of mind entirely controls the quantum of your enjoyment. Also, the amount of importance you give to something also controls the quantum of your enjoyment. And very often when you chase something, when you really want something, when you exaggerate the importance of something, it ends up being disappointing. Because you hyped it up, Everyone is talking, oh, we should go to Japan, we should go to Japan, we should go to Japan. Everyone is talking about going to Japan. Psst. When you go to Japan without any expectations, it's a bliss. So it's an entire your capacity to enjoy an object is an entirely mental phenomenon. The more you indulge in something, the enjoyment reduces. Why? Because it's not that anything in the object changed. Your own capacity to consume it changed. Your mind's satiation has altered. So the capacity of joy is totally subjective. When you grow over something, for a child, the toy is so wonderful. For an adult, I hope it's not wonderful. You know, my nephew, he's the first in the family to own a Bentley. You know which Bentley we're talking about? That toy Bentley. And you may remember, I remember at least 25, 30 years ago when such things were not available, but I had thought, oh, I wish there was something like this. Thank God I still don't have the thought. So when you're a child and his eyes light up whenever he comes home, his eyes light up. He wants to ride his Bentley. So the toy is extremely joyous to a child. The same toy hopefully is not joyous to an adult. If it is, then the adult is not an adult. Only the body has grown, the mind hasn't. So what is that? The toy is the same, the object is the same. Where is the joy in it? It's subjective. Who are you? What is your mental state? So what you will realize is that what you are giving so much importance to, what you are giving so much of mental bandwidth to, you grow a little bit, you'll realize, so pointless. And you experience it, right? In retrospect, you see, oh, how silly I was 10 years ago to be bothered by that. So you see this gradual change in you as your mental setup also changes. So in various ways, not only in growth, even in terms of quantum of contact, even in terms of state of mind, all of these mental phenomenon control the actual enjoyment in the world. It's a very philosophical point. What is joy then? What is happiness then? In the past, we have talked about how happiness is the quantum of cessation of mental agitation. The quantum of happiness is actually the quantum of cessation of agitation. The more desire you build up in your head, that's what, when it gets seized, that's happiness. The extent to which it gets seized is happiness. The extent to which it remains is still a longing, still a unhappiness, still a incompleteness. Right? So you built up 10 desires, or a desire up to a propensity of 10. The experience satisfied it up to 7. So you're 70% happy, 30% still वापस आकर के मजा लेना पड़ेगा इसका. इस बार पूरी तरीके से नहीं हुआ. So you're still 70% happy, 30% unhappy. Subjective, mental, right? So that's the philosophical point. Okay. Any more questions?
Thank you, sir.
Not. Okay. We'll quickly start chapter 10 and take up a couple of verses. I have a hard stop at 9 because I have a flight to catch and I'm not going to be taking any risks right now.
Our
So-
race to watch.
Hmm?
Our race to watch at 9. Have the hard stops.
Ankit is very happy you have a hot stove.
What race is there? There's a Formula One or something. What? Oh, horse race.
Formula 1.
Formula One. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not following. Okay. Vibhuti Yoga, chapter 10. We'll chant verse number 1. Shri Bhagavan Bhuya eva mahabaho Shruну me paramam vachah यत्ते हम प्रियमाणाय वक्ष्यामि हितकाम्यया। श्रीभगवानुवाच भूय एव महाबाहो शृणु मे परमं वचः यत्तेऽहं प्रीयमाणाय वक्ष्यामि हितकाम्यया. The blessed Lord said, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, O Mahabaho, Shृणु me, listen to me, listen to my supreme word. Earlier he called it the secret word, now he's calling it the supreme word, Rajavidya, Rajaguhya. My supreme word, which I will speak to you who are delighted for your welfare. So every chapter in this bhakti section is beginning with a slight emotional catering to Arjuna. In chapter 9 also he said, since you are sincere. In chapter 7 also you said, since you are dear. Here he says, since you are delighted. Means you have the right frame of mind. Speak only to a person who has the right frame of mind. Don't waste your energy on someone who's not willing to listen. And don't try to change anyone's opinion. It's no point. Yeah, you can state your perspective, but don't have to, get into a dogfight. Because they'll only sap your energy. It's very important for a student, or not even a student, but anyone in a discourse, in any conversation, in a vad, as we say, to be receptive, right? And Arjuna was slowly becoming more and more receptive. Earlier he was completely distraught. He was not in a position to listen. He saw Krishna more as a friend than a teacher or a lord. And slowly that has changed through the chapters. And now he is truly embodying a very devotional attitude. He's expressing that delight. He's expressing that devotion to the Lord. And that's why, recognizing that, the Lord is continuing to speak. Right? Whenever you're saying anything to someone, you always have to be very receptive. You have to be very conscious of their state of mind. Are they still receptive? Some people have no idea who's listening, who's not listening. They keep on talking. The other person in front of them first tries to be polite. First they're trying to be polite and pretend as if they're listening. Then when they don't get the message, they start grunting, they start looking the other way. Still the person who's so consumed in just speaking, it's called mic moha. They keep speaking even though half the people are looking away, people are scratching their head. That's why I ask you to turn on your video. Are you still listening? Otherwise, if you're scratching your head, then I'm like, okay, I have to shut up now. I'm done with class. Especially the last couple of classes, I've seen some people are like, their eyes become watery because they're listening to so much stuff and they can't. I'm like, okay, done. My own eyes become watery. So it's very important when you're saying, when you're speaking, when you're trying to convey something, that you are conscious of the recipient, right? So, O Mahabaho, O mighty armed, O great warrior, I will tell you the supreme word. I will tell you again. I will elaborate again. I will speak further on it because you are in this delighted state of mind for your welfare. आपके हित में, हित काम्यया. It's for your good. It may not be what you like to hear. It may not be what you want to hear, but I'm speaking for your welfare. It's very important that while you speak nicely and calmly and softly and gently to a person, you also speak the truth, what is good for them. You don't sugarcoat it too much. You don't simply avoid telling them what they need to hear just because you may hurt them, right? So, दूसरे के हित में क्या है? That's very important. The Lord is giving all this knowledge for the benefit of Arjuna, not for any other ulterior motive he may have. He had no motive, right? A true teacher has no motive. They simply want to convey to the student what they have learnt and what they perceive as what the student needs. Get it? So आपकी जो हित में है वो मैं आपको बोलने जा रहा हूँ, जो मुझे लगता है आपको चाहिए. The capacity of a teacher to identify that in a student also speaks highly of the teacher. Some people are not able to identify that. when you're speaking to a domestic audience, when you're speaking to a corporate audience, when you're speaking to a young audience, when you're speaking to an old audience, when you're speaking to a Gen Z audience, when you're speaking to kids, when you're speaking to older people, how do you say what is relevant for them? Not only relevant in terms of what they would like to hear, but what will actually help them, right? The way maybe we would have interpreted a lot of this to a young class of maybe 20-year-olds would be quite different, perhaps, than speaking to people in their 40s and 50s and maybe 60s, like we are speaking right now, right? So I'm speaking to you for your welfare. Beautifully highlighting the grandeur of the Lord as a teacher, right? Spoken like a true teacher. Verse number 2. Name vidusuraganaha prabhavam na maharshayah ahamadirhi devanam maharshinam cha sarvashah. Name vidusuraganaha prabhavam na maharshayah ahamadirhi devanam maharshinam cha sarvashah. Again, a very mystical statement that the Lord makes that should trigger you to think. Neither the host of gods nor the great sages know my origin, for in all respects I am the source of all the gods and the great sages. Neither the gods nor the great sages know my origin. The great sages have been the progenitors, and they have been the cultivators, they have been the translators of the divine word. They have given us the scriptures in that sense. The lineage of sages have been credited with that. The host of gods, again, from a very Vedic perspective, and we see this throughout the Bhagavad Gita sometimes, references to the Vedas, right? So when the Vedas talk essentially about gods, and again, I'm not someone who is deeply knowledgeable on this, but the host of gods refer in a very Vedic sense to the different functions of the universe, right? So traditionally there were 11 Rudras. You can see it in the commentary itself. The 11 Rudras, the 8 Vasus, the 12 Adityas, the 49 Maruts, the Ashwini Kumaras, Prajapati, Lord Brahma, and Indra, and other sort of minor gods. When we look at gods, they are not meant to be seen as sort of competing entities or separate entities, right? As we've said before, all gods, all small g gods, are a partial manifestation, a representation of the big G God. So it's a Hinduism in that sense is not a polytheistic religion. It's actually a very functional monotheism. Okay, functional in the sense, functionally it is divided into a pantheon of gods and goddesses, each of which have a symbolism, have a role, have an identification with some aspect of this manifest world, but they are all an aspect of that one supreme reality, what we call Brahman. So for example, when we talk about the Adityas represent the solar pantheon. So the 12 Adityas represent the 12 suns, each representing a month of the year, perhaps, right? And if you, I don't know, I wonder if each time the sun is in a particular Rashi, part of the zodiac, it is called something. I wonder, I don't know if it is one of the Adityas. So incidentally, if you look at the evolution of Vishnu as Paramatma, right? We call Vishnu as the supreme sustainer of the universe. maintenance is attributed to Vishnu. Vishnu is also the name of one of the Adityas. Okay. In fact, later in chapter 10, he's going to say, among Adityas, I am Vishnu. Now, I don't think it's a coincidence. Is this Vishnu, who is the Aditya, related to Mahavishnu, who now, after thousands of years, we pray to as the Supreme Lord? I don't think they are unrelated. I think there has been a gradual sort of evolution of ideas which has led to the elevation of Vishnu as a supreme deity. So I wonder whether Vishnu as is conceived today is actually among the same from the Adityas, the Vishnu from the Adityas. Similarly, so Adityas represent the solars, represent light, represent sustenance, represent the cosmic order in a sense. The Rudras represent dissolution. They are the powers of dissolution. They're powers that represent change and eventual sort of pralay, right? Which is why eventually Shiva comes to be identified with Rudra, right? Rudras. Similarly, there were the 8 Vasus. I believe Vasus are related to the elements, right? The elements, the moon, some stars, but the 8 Vasus represent air, fire, earth, and some of the important sort of cosmic entities like the moon. The pole star, I believe, is also a Vasu. The Maruts represent the winds. They again represent change. They represent, the Maruts are said to be children of the Rudras, right? So they represent change. The Ashwini Kumaras represent the healing forces, right? So the healing forces through change, through transformation. Indra is the god is the lord of all the gods. Again, has been associated with rain, and in that sense, an important aspect of this cosmic cycle. So all these gods represent some power or some subtle sort of aspect of this functioning universe, right? So in a sense, they are a product of this manifest universe. Now when he says, neither do the gods, the host of gods, nor the great sages know my origin, it should make us think, what is he hinting at, right? Brahman is that battery which enables the torch to light up, right? And through the light we see this manifest universe. All these gods and goddesses are an aspect of this manifest universe. They are part of what the light is seeing. The torch can't see the battery, right? So they are a product of Brahman. They are an outcome of Brahman. So in that sense, he says that, which is why also in scripturally, a human birth is considered divine, because a human itself has the capacity to, of course, understand all these symbolisms and then return to the source, merge with Godhood. Only a human being, through their sukshma buddhi, through their subtle intellect, can conceive, connect, and then drive themselves on the path of sadhana to know the Lord, know me, he says. Right? So neither the host of gods nor the great sages, I am the source of all of them. They come out of me, they emerge from me. So something to think about, a beautiful symbolism. And he continues in verse number 3. Yo mamajamanadim cha vetti loka maheshwaram asammudha samartyeshu sarva papaih pramuchyate. Yo mamajamanadim cha vetti loka maheshwaram asammudha samartyeshu sarva papaih pramuchyate. He who knows me as unborn, ajanma, as beginningless, as the Supreme Lord, Maheshwara, Loka Maheshwaram, Supreme Lord of the world, He undiluted among mortals is liberated from all sins. So look, he's giving a qualification. He's giving a very clear message. He who has understood what I have tried to convey in chapter 7, 8, 9, I am Akshara, I am without beginning and an end. He went through all of those beautiful indicative definitions, right? So he who's understood of all of that, he is undiluted among the mortals. Among human beings, he becomes undiluted. He becomes asammudha. And he becomes liberated. So if you've got the message, you don't need chapter 10. He is liberated. He who knows me, he who has understood, he who has read between the lines of me as unborn, that without a beginning or an end. The world was born out of Brahman. Brahman wasn't born. It was before time, before birth. Born means it had a death, means it's changing. It had a beginning. No, it's beginningless. Anadim. The time, beginningless, beginning and end only exists in the realm of time. Time itself is a product of this creation. The idea of beginning and an end indicate, okay, it's something before the beginning, something after the end. It's an endless chain, it's an infinite chain. It indicates change. So Brahman is unborn, unchanging, beginningless, timeless, eternal. Puratanaha, ancient. These are all definitions we saw in chapter 7, 8. Loka Maheshwaram. This is the aspect that this chapter will seek to build. I am the supreme Lord of the world. To instill in you a sense of devotion, a sense of fascination, a sense of grandeur. That is very important. Either knowledge has already cultivated this in you, an appreciation for the wondrous, inconceivable grandeur of the Lord. If knowledge hasn't done it, okay, let the Vibhutis do their work. If the Vibhutis won't do it, let the Vishwarupa Darshan do its work. The idea of Vibhutis, the idea of Vishwarupa Darshan is to cultivate in a sadhak, cultivate in a devotee the Loka Maheshwaram, the idea of the Lord as the supreme, the idea of God as the supreme Lord, that inconceivable power that sustains this universe. So he through knowledge who has understood this, they are already undiluted. Right? For the rest of us, we need to read further. Verse number 4 and 5 we will take in the next class. It's already 9 o'clock. I have 5 more minutes. If there are any questions, we can quickly take any questions. Otherwise, I'm going to pause out here and we'll take up chapter 10 from Tuesday onwards. Any questions?
Just a question, please. So Loka Maheshwar would otherwise, I mean, since we're talking about the small g gods, uh, just for understanding, so it is referred to as Lok Maheshwar also and Vishnu also. So what is one to understand then? It is very confusing. I mean, why is our this series of our gods and goddesses? I mean, there is no particular order at all. I mean, how does one understand? At least I don't understand that Param Brahman is referred to Vishnu or to Mahesh or to neither.
Dekhiye, there are two parallel tracks. One is an idea, one is a conviction of the scriptures that God can be approached through innumerable paths, and the nature of the seeker will determine what path they will take. So all manifestations, all forms, all depictions into deities, into entities, have been given keeping the seeker in mind. Right? depending on your own individual nature and depending on your social sort of identity as well. Say, for example, if you're from Bengal, you will gravitate towards Devi. If you're from Maharashtra, you will gravitate towards Ganapati because the last 200, 300, 400 years, a lot of Ganapati puja has happened out there. If you are from Mathura, you will gravitate towards Baki Bihari. So, depending on your individual temperament and, of course, your sort of social identity and its the Mahat, you will gravitate towards a form. You will gravitate towards a deity. Then comes the idea of an Ishta. An Ishta is one who you most relate with. So, whose glories, whose symbolisms, whose lords, whose stories who you most connect with, right? And while it's not that it can't change, but it remains sort of the same for most of your life. I think after 15 years of study, I can say Shri Krishna is my Ishta. It's very important for you to identify who's your Ishta in this path of sadhana, because where bhakti comes in, Ishta plays a very important role, right? But at the same time, when you create an Ishta, you create a separation from others. You almost create a hierarchy. No, there is no hierarchy. It is all one. Sab Brahma, Sa Shiva, Sendra, Sokshara, Paramasvarat, Sa Eva Vishnu, Sa Prana, Sa Kalogni, Sa Chandramaha. All of them are the same. Vishnu is the same as Brahma, is the same as Shiva, Maheshwara is the same as everything else, right? So to reiterate that, the scriptures invite you to envision, visualize, or explain it in the form of all deities, right? So, although when he says Loka Maheshwaram, he doesn't necessarily relate to Shiva in this verse, but yes, Mahesh has been sort of identified as Shiva, right, culturally. So it's very interesting the kind of person who will gravitate towards a Shiva, the kind of person who will gravitate towards many serious Shiva devotees might find Vishnu very very casual, very light-hearted, too light-hearted. Krishna's too light-hearted for me. Shiva has this very stoic. Chances are they are taking life very seriously, or they are going through a lot of serious things in life, which is why suddenly they're connecting with Shiva. So it
But
totally
more
depends on.
often than not, it is the family following which
That also
people
has
tend to.
again, while that is not a hard sort of rule, yes, your Kula Dharma also has a very important contribution, because that's an identification, right? You identify with your family, you identify with your lineage, and naturally their practices and their sort of devotion also rubs off on your nature, no doubt about it, right? And in a way, that's sustaining the practice, that's sustaining the lineage.
You've grown up with it,
Yeah.
how it is. So you you don't even know. For most of us, we won't even be, unless you go out and you seek and something dawns upon you. For most people, it is what has come to you through your family in terms of
Not a bad
Ishta.
thing. That's not a bad thing. It's like a a Kickstarter, a support kit in the beginning to help you start exploring. Now, over a period, as you explore, you will develop your own nuances. While your family may worship Vishnu in a certain way, you may worship Vishnu in a very different way.
And
Right?
also, you said your Isht is Krishna. So you mean the small G Krishna or the big G Krishna?
That doesn't that dissolves, right? You start, of course, you have to endeavor to see if you reduce Krishna to small g, as a person, that's doing injustice to,
The
that's not
Vishnu.
seeing him in his true glory. He is Krishna because he is Bhagwan because he has transcended his limitation, right? His limited form. So,
So, just one last question. I know, scripturally, it is the big G is Krishna. I'm just asking Bhagavad Gita.
Krishna is speaking from the vantage point as big G, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
And which is why we always say that when Krishna says me, don't reduce it to the person Krishna. It's what Krishna represents. Brahman.
So that's
Okay.
why everywhere it's like Bhagavan Uvacha.
Indeed, it's not Sri Krishna Uvacha.
Yeah.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Elsewhere in the in the Mahabharata, you'll see Shri Krishna Uvacha. In many places, you'll see Shri Krishna Uvacha. But in the Bhagavad Gita portion, it'll say Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. So who is speaking? It's like, what identity do you take up? You may be a very big and powerful person, but in a certain place, you may limit your identity to, just a friend, just a, a boss. But your identity overall may be much larger, right? So his universal identity is there in the Bhagavad Gita. His personal identity is throughout the Mahabharata. Right? Okay. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on